Okay, today we're going to work on adding and subtracting rational expressions. Okay, the first thing you have to remember is that you need to find what we call a least common denominator. So the last lesson we were working on finding the LCM, the least common multiple, and that's when you didn't have a fraction. But now when you turn it into a fraction, then we're going to switch it from the LCM to the LCD. So look at the problem, start with the denominators, and try to take a GCF or factor each one. So on the first one, I would say it has no GCF, and it starts with 1, so fast factor. What multiplies for negative 12? That adds for negative 1, and that would be negative 4 and positive 3. And then on the other side, I would say this one has a GCF, and the highest number that goes into both is 12. So if I take a 12 out, I have 12 parentheses x minus 4. And now you want to list your LCD. And remember we talked about the other day, anything they share in common, you write down one time. So that would be x minus 4. And then things they do not share, you must also include, so x plus 3, and also the 12. And then somewhere where you get down to the bottom and you're going to write your final answer, your LCD is going to go on the bottom of your fraction. I always write my plain number first, so I would put 12 first. And then the two parentheses, it doesn't matter which one you list first, x minus 4, and x plus 3. And then you could write your restrictions from here. So on your restrictions, remember it's whatever makes 0 in the denominator. So the first parentheses would be positive 4, and the second parentheses would be negative 3. So now what we have to do is we have to go figure out the numerator. So the first fraction is here in maroon when I look at the denominator. What is this denominator missing out of the LCD? Well, it has x minus 4. It has x plus 3. So the one it's missing is the 12. So if I put a 12 on the bottom, then I must also put a times 12 on the top. So your goal is to make the original denominator look exactly like the LCD. And whatever you have to put on the bottom, then you must also put that same thing in the numerator. So on the green, it has 12. It has x minus 4, so it's missing the x plus 3. So if I put x plus 3 here, then I must also put x plus 3 here. So now what I want to do is I want to take the numerators from each fraction. I'm going to write those down, and my goal is to work all that out, combine it together so that my final answer is one fraction. So on the two numerators, I have 12 times x plus, because there's an addition between the two fractions, 5 times x plus 3. So that gives me 12x, distribute, so plus 5x plus 15. Combine like terms, and so your top becomes 17x plus 15. And then that over your LCD with your restrictions makes your final answer. Okay, we're going to kind of skip around on the notes and go a little bit out of order. So let's jump ahead and then we'll come back. So let's go to D. So if I look at D, x plus 3, I can't do anything with x plus 3, so I'm going to leave that denominator alone. But the other denominator, you should be thinking that has a GCF. So I'm going to take out a 3, and that gives me x plus 3. So then my LCD Well, they share an x plus 3, so I write that down one time. And then they don't share the 3, so I have to write that down as well. So somewhere where we're going to write your final answer, I put my plane number first on the bottom, which is 3, and then x plus 3. And my restriction is x could not equal negative 3. All right, so now the first denominator, it is missing the 3. So if I have to put a 3 on the bottom, then I must also put a 3 on the top. Now the second fraction, when you look at the second fraction on the denominator, it has the 3 and it also has the x plus 3. So this denominator is not missing anything from the LCD. So if it has it all, then do not multiply that fraction by anything. So leave that numerator alone. So for the tops, I'm looking at 3 times 7 plus x, which would make it 21 plus x. Okay, and then I'll just write it as x plus 21, or you can, I always put the variable first and the plain number second. And then I just put that on top of my LCD with my restriction, and I am done. Okay, so then let's go to the last addition question, E down here. And the first denominator, I would fast factor. What multiplies for negative 8 that adds for 7? And that would be a positive 8 and a negative 1. The other denominator, you should be thinking GCF, and I would take out a 3, which would give me 3 parentheses x plus 8. Okay, LCD. Oops. Okay, they share x plus 8. So write that down once. They don't share x minus 1, and they don't share a 3. So then when I come over here to write my final answer, I'm going to put my plain number first, and then I don't care which parentheses you put. List your restrictions. So x cannot equal negative 8 and positive 1. Okay, the first denominator here in maroon, what is it missing from the LCD? Well, the one that it does not have is the 3. So if I have to put a 3 here, then I have to put a times 3 here. The second fraction, the one it is missing from the LCD, is x minus 1. So x minus 1. So now if I look at the numerators, I'm going to be taking 3 times x plus 1. And then I'm going to add it to 7 times x minus 1. So distribute, distribute. So 3x plus 3 plus 7x minus 7. And then combine your like terms. So 3x plus 7x is 10x. And 3 minus 7 is negative 4. And then that would go over your LCD with your restrictions, and you're done. So that makes up our addition questions. So now we're going to kind of switch over to some subtraction questions. So I'm going to go back up here to part B and start with that one. You still want to break down the denominators, even though it's subtraction instead of addition, just like we were. So fast factor, what multiplies for 4 that adds for 4? And that would be x plus 2, x plus 2. And on the second fraction, remember if you're missing the b term, that is difference of squares, which difference of squares is factored into two parentheses. And that would be x plus and x minus. And then the same number that multiplies for 4 is 2 and 2. So now when you're listing your LCD, you would say they share an x plus 2. They do not share an x minus 2. And then there is also another leftover x plus 2. So we also have to include the extra leftover x plus 2. Okay, so somewhere way over here where we're going to write our answer, we're going to have these three parentheses on the bottom. And then x cannot equal positive 2 and negative 2, so I'm just going to say plus or minus 2. If you want to still list positive 2, comma negative 2, you're more than welcome to do that as well. All right, the first denominator, it is missing the x minus 2. So then I would have to take this one times x minus 2. The second denominator is missing the other x plus 2. All right, now when you look at the top, the numerator, on the first fraction, okay, it has x plus 1. X plus 1 is considered two terms, not one term. So if it's considered two terms, you want to go ahead and put this in parentheses because it's not going to be a distributive property. Okay, distributive property is when you have only one term on the top of the fraction. This one has two terms. So I'm going to write it as x minus 2 and then another parentheses x plus 1 and then minus, and then we have one term which is just 6. I didn't put in parentheses, and then x plus 2. Okay, so the first fraction, if I'm taking 2 items times 2 items, we're going to make a box. Okay, so over here to the side, I'm going to make a box. And remember, for multiplying, you are putting the information on the outside of the box. And then multiply things together to fill it in. So then that gives me x squared minus 2x plus 1x minus 2. And then over here on the second half, when you get ready to distribute, don't just distribute this 6. Do you see that we have this subtraction sign? Think of that like a negative sign. So please take the negative with you and distribute a negative 6, which will make it negative 6x minus 12. So now you can just work on combining all your like terms. So you're going to have x squared negative 2x plus 1x is negative 1x minus 6x makes negative 7x. And then negative 2 minus 12 makes negative 14. And then that will be what you put on the top for your final answer. So the biggest part that people mess up on distributive property, or with subtraction, is the distributive property part here. If you have a subtraction sign between the two fractions, you must take this negative sign and you must distribute it to the second parts of the fraction. Okay, so let's try it again. So last one. So I'm going to fast factor. So multiplies for 2, that adds for negative 3. So that's going to give me negative 2 and negative 1. And then fast factor again, multiplies for -2, that adds for +1. And that's going to give me +2 and -1. And then our LCD, they share an x minus 1. They don't share x minus 2, and they don't share x plus 2. Okay. The first fraction is missing the x plus 2. So I'm going to multiply this one by x plus 2. The second fraction is missing the x minus 2. Okay, so on the first one I have one item on the top, so that's an x, and I'm going to multiply that by x plus 2 minus, now on the second fraction I have 2x plus 1. That's 2 items, so I'm going to put that in a parentheses. So that looks like this. So I have a distributive property, and then I'm going to have on the other side where I have to make a box, and then I have to distribute. Now, the order is up to you on what you want to do on the second side. You can make the box first and then distribute your negative sign, or you can distribute your negative sign to only one of the parentheses and then make the box. Okay, my answer key, I was always taught when I was younger to box first, then distribute, so that's just the route I go. So off to the side, I am going to box first. So I'm going to put my information on the outside. And then I'm going to fill it in. Okay, which would give me 2x squared plus 1x minus 4x minus 2. But then I still have the subtraction sign, so now I'm going to take this subtraction sign here and I'm going to distribute that to all of it, which basically is going to flip the signs of everything that was in the box. So it's going to become a negative 2x squared minus 1x plus 4x plus 2. So you can box, and then because of the subtraction sign, just go through and flip all the signs of the information from the box. And then at the beginning one, we're just going to distribute here, so that makes it x squared plus 2x. Oh, comes to my attention over here, I forgot to do the bottom part of my answer. So put your LCD on the bottom of your answer. So put these 3 parentheses, don't care what order. X cannot equal plus or minus 2 and positive 1. Okay, so then if I combine like terms, x squared minus 2x squared is negative x squared. 2x minus 1x is 1x. 1x plus 4x is 5x. And then we have the plus 2 at the end. And that becomes your new top, and you are done.